Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone, welcome along to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Enda McGinley and Nigel Dunne are with me this morning to reflect on the All-Ireland semi-finals and the Tailteann Cup final as well. So let's start with Saturday's game, Kerry, Tyrone. I'm sure, obviously, Enda, with your Tyrone hat on, you'll be disappointed with the performance that maybe they gave, but I do think probably in any way it felt like maybe nobody was going to stop Kerry in the form that they were in at the weekend.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's how you sort of ease your wounds. whenever team is playing as well as what Kerry were playing on Saturday, you sort of know that it was going to take Tyrone up their absolute best to compete with them, never mind potentially give them a chance of winning. And Tyrone were off it. They were misfiring badly, particularly up front. And when you're doing that, you're always going to struggle. But you were coming away with it much more thinking of the level that Kerry were at than particularly too much from the Tyrone point of view. I think Tyrone has had probably a difficult enough year. They got relegated, probably very unfortunate. There's elements of the game and moments where you can see the potential there. But they're obviously still a work in progress, which doesn't surprise when you're a manager in the first year in and everything else. There is a process that most teams have to go through, and I think they're still there. And particularly with the younger players that are sitting there ready to come in, that's probably, and it's a big task to try and get that right and get the balance right, and that'll not be easy nor no guarantees. But I think Kerry, absolutely, if you look at the average age of the Kerry squad, what they've been doing over the past 2-3 years, how the rule changes suit them, like I thought they were immense, and they're missing key players too from that. But David Clifford looks like Kerry's playing well, and then David Clifford, his body language, the way he's gauging with the crowd, the aggression, the way he's celebrating his scores. He is a boy with a bit between his teeth. It's as if he is saying, I don't really care what my team is doing. I am dragging them all the way to this this title. When he's in that mood, you're on a difficult wicket.
Yeah. I think the good news for football fans, though, is that Donegal kind of feel the same, though, Nigel. Like, I think maybe after it all, you've got two teams in unbelievable form who both delivered brilliant performances at the weekend, and we have got a box office All-Ireland to look forward to because of all the reasons that Enda has outlined.
Absolutely, Jacqui. It's the perfect All-Ireland final in many respects. You have two contrasting styles, X-factor players on both teams. Both teams were scintillating at times in their semi-finals. And look, we have a final now where it's going to capture the imagination. You have the whole Jim McGuinness story. You have David Clifford's form, as Enda alluded to. So it's the perfect match. It's the perfect cocktail for maybe one of football's best ever championships. Look, it wasn't the best weekend for football, but we have a real good chance as a GA, the football wider community, to end the year on the perfect note with, like you said, a blockbuster kind of Fraser Ali final. And I can't wait for it. It should be the perfect ending to a great year.
Does it feel that even after it, and maybe the semi-finals weren't the best spectacle ever, but have we ended up with the two best teams anyway?
Oh, I think without a doubt, Jacqui, Armagh might quibble with that. I think Armagh had a really, really impressive year. That had a disastrous 15 minutes. But other than that, they barely put a foot wrong all year. So I feel a wee bit for Armagh whenever we're having that conversation. Look, the two best teams are in it. But if we consider Donegal, we're streets ahead of everybody in the start of the National League and literally took the foot off the gas because they didn't want to be in the National League final. They wanted to avoid it because Jimmy's plans had the Ulster Championship in his sights. And so he sticks to Jimmy's plans. The All-Ireland title is also in his plans, I'm pretty sure. So he's back on track to where he wants to be. The team that then won the National League, probably as much because Donegal took the foot off the gas at that stage, was Kerry. So they've been the second form team. They haven't set, I didn't think they were setting the championship alight, particularly in the Munster Championship nor in the group stages. and obviously that hammering in Meath. But I've always thought that Kerry, a team that takes a beating in a championship at some stage, if you're a good enough team, that is the thing that it's difficult medicine to take. But it is the medicine that really, really can strengthen you when you have the right team of players. And Kerry very obviously have had that, because since then they haven't really put a foot wrong. They were okay against Armagh, and then they were absolutely spectacular. And when that opportunity arose, Kerry arriving into Croke Park, it's got so many hallmarks of '09. That's been referenced plenty of times before. But I thought while they hit an unbelievable peak against Armagh for those 15 minutes, I thought their 70-minute performance against Tyrone was at a higher level again. So Kerry, absolutely, Donegal, absolutely. And then you've got the contrast in styles. You have two experienced managers. You have two teams that absolutely believe they should and want to be up those steps. And you've just massive talent on both sides, just sprinkled across both sides. So look, it is a final to really, really savour.
The form of David Clifford, Nigel, it just, Enda's so right. It's just, he looks like his body language is at another level, the way that he's carrying himself. There is something different this year. I don't know what it is. So I don't know what Jim McGuinness is going to do with him, because I heard Malachy O'Rourke very honestly after the game saying, we thought we were doing a good job on Paddy Clifford. We thought we were doing a good job on Seanie O'Shea. And then your man goes and has an absolute worldie. So how do you solve a problem like the Kerry full forward line if you are Jim McGuinness trying to box off all of those threats, and the biggest one being David Clifford?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, Jacqui. Like, David Clifford is from a different planet. He's a freak of nature, and he's possibly having his best every year. One of the best years I've seen a Gaelic footballer have. Probably in line to win his third Footballer of the Year, which could cement this whole greatest of all time debate. That's kind of irrelevant, I know. But what I'd say is, I think that could be the crux that kills Kerry in the end. I think Jim McGuinness, like Donegal, really have to hyper focus on David Clifford. I think even if it meant Paddy or Seanie having a better game than they had the last day and exerting more of an influence on the game, if Donegal can stop David Clifford having his exceptional performances that he's been having since he hit Croke Park, I don't know if Kerry have enough outside of David. I know I'm not disrespecting Paddy or Seanie, but I'm just thinking, if you look at Donegal, they had 13 different scores. I think Donegal aren't reliant on one or two particular players. It's the system. Kerry are relying on an out-and-out genius. And I just think that's playing into the hands of McGuinness in his preparations. McCall has snuffed out every forward he's come across this year. Mulroy, Canavan, Morris at the weekend. Now he is meeting a different animal, and he has the license to, he'll avoid the defensive system. So he'll just follow David Clifford everywhere, and everyone else will go zonally defensive. But I think the fact that David Clifford is so good, the fact he's in irresistible form, I'm not sure that bodes well for Kerry, because the blueprint to beat Kerry is there for Jim McGuinness. Stop David Clifford. But having the blueprint and being able to do it is probably two different things.
Yeah, well, in fairness, Hampshey's tried it before and has done it effectively, and Tyrone still couldn't do it either. Enda,
and
you know,
Hampshey is a stunning man marker. Like, I mean, he is a serious quality player. You could say, is he at the peak of his powers because he's missed so much of this year with injury? Potentially not, but he's a serious operator. And like Clifford's goal, I was watching. Clifford had got away for the first couple of balls with Hampshey. Hampshey had stuck with him and actually done well in one-on-one contest, and then Clifford had burned him on the outside and underneath the Hogan and along the Davin to get a point. And then the next effort, I think, was a physical enough contest between the two of them. Clifford got out of it, hit a 2-pointer, and I was thinking that Hampshey's going to be on it. He's the next ball is so critical, and it came over, and you could see the backdoor cut sort of space opening up. Clifford knew he was sort of eyeing it. Hampshey knew he was looking at it and was sort of had his body shape pretty much bang on. And as soon as Clifford went to go, Hampshey knew it was coming and went and got physical hands on him. But so you can know it's coming. You can do everything almost practically right, and he's gone. Like, yeah. Hampshey was almost already selling himself that if Clifford wanted to come out and get an easy point, he was going to do that. But it's just so difficult, and yet he got the ball, sliced in, got his goal. Like, I was looking at it, and it was sort of, you could see it. I was in the Cusick stand. You could just see it happening right in front of you, and you knew what was going to happen, and you knew you were looking at Hampshire to react a certain way, and he done it. He reacted exactly how I would have thought he should have reacted, and yet Clifford got away, and I just sat back in my seat and I thought, no, that's just not Bisto, as he says. It's different gravy. So no, Clifford is something like Armagh. When you reflect on Armagh's performance, Armagh got plenty of critique because of the 32 that Kerry scored, but David had a relatively normal game in terms of his impact on the scoreboard against Armagh. Sean O'Shea took out. So there is the double edge that Donegal have to do. I would agree with Nigel, though. Donegal have the tools to potentially be able to do that. But there's more in Kerry too. For me, Paul Gainey's fitness is really, really critical. I think he is a underrated. He's a highly rated player, and yet he's still underrated. He is as smart and as shrewd a player that's out there, and he's a brilliant foil to David Clifford as well. Exceptionally selfless in how he plays. He plays and brings others in and links others, and then can do damage himself. Exceptionally intelligent footballer. His role when Donegal, as they will do, really turn the heat and screw on David, his type of role, I think, is a key asset that Kerry missed against Tyrone, because their other forwards had a relatively underwhelming day.
Just one thing, sorry to go across on the David Clifford thing. I was watching him at the weekend, and I've watched him a few times because obviously, like, I'm a mad GF and I'm fascinated like the rest of us. He's kind of redefining how we're going to coach forward play and how people are going to think about it, because I was always told when I was younger, keep on the move, make lateral runs left to right. David Clifford stands, walks, directs traffic, and then Kerry will obviously run the ball to him. He explodes with a 7 or 8 meter sprint just at the right time. It's very subtle movements, but he's essentially not busy the whole game. He's walking around. It kind of reminds me of Messi. Like, he just knows when they're trying to get him to come on this explosive loop, or then they're watching for that, and then he's doing the backdoor cut. I just think he's a special guy. Like, what he's doing is, and it's great for any upcoming forward. You'll be told to do less running, which is great.
Well, I was going to say it might be great for the forwards. It's probably not great for the coaches, because you'll have a job of work on your hands saying, well, it seems to work for David Clifford.
Yeah, that's a fairly high bar, but there will certainly be plenty that'll quite happily say, no, move less.
Yeah.
Move less. That'll be one instruction that they do manage to follow really well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, I do think that David Clifford's the exception to the rule, but it is fascinating to watch him. I've watched other forwards under, like Andy Moran back in the day was just exceptional at going left to right and creating space. He wouldn't have been the fastest, but he could always get the yard. But David Clifford has just redefined definitely how I look at a forward play anyway.
The concern for Kerry, I suppose, is, for me, they were Joe O'Connor was obviously amazing, but they still, stats wise, in terms of kick out possessions, they struggled plenty, and Tyrone actually won the kick out battle. Now, for me, Tyrone didn't make anywhere near enough hay off that. Like, if you're winning particularly long kick out battle, and particularly if you're winning the opposition's kick outs, that is one of the most dangerous attacking platforms you can face in the game, as we've seen what Armagh faced whenever they lost their own kickouts. Tyrone, I think, won something like 11 of Kerry's kickouts. They got 2 points from it. Like, that's nowhere. Kerry won 11 of Armagh's and had them bait out the gate. So Kerry's midfield, we know, is in a state of flux, has been badly hit by injuries. Joe O'Connor manfully is stepping up to that task, but again, as much as they are reliant inside on David Clifford, they are very reliant on Joe in midfield, and so Kerry, that will be a weakness that Donegal will look to exploit. And the oldest thing in the book is how do you quail a top forward? Well, stop the supply of ball into him. If you can get on top in midfield, then that is an area that Kerry will have to be really, really concerned about. They need to get more primary possession out there.
Yeah, it's hard though, because look, they do have their own injury crisis as well, Nigel, and they've had to adapt as the season has gone on. Joe O'Connor thought he might be playing wing forward. He suddenly wasn't. He was asked to come back, do a job again. And I think, in fairness to Jack O'Connor, he has managed to consistently continue to reshuffle his deck and find a way to make it work. And yes, they are surviving off less primary ball, but they're still winning, and they look like they're winning in a that more sort of aggressive way up front by just transitioning the ball quickly through that area and just getting something from a reward at the other end.
Yeah, no, you're right, Jackie. But the whole thing is it sustainable? Is it going to be enough against Donegal? If they can't get their hands on the ball for large periods, I just think they'll be up against a different animal. It has been fine up to now, but we've seen once they got the press on the Armagh kickout, and once they could pin Armagh back in, we've seen how devastating they can be. That 15 minutes of magic. If they are like they were against Tyrone and the kickouts, I think Donegal will eat them alive. So we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly from Kerry. They're going to need the good against Donegal, especially around the kickouts in that war zone, because the whole thing comes down to kickouts. And in fairness, from the other side of things on their own kickouts with Shane Ryan, I think they've an amazing goalie who can go. Like I was fascinated watching his, the mid-range kickout when the teams have the two banks of four and they're pressing. He can pick guys in the middle of the two zones. He can go short, he can go long. Him and Morgan, I thought, were excellent at the weekend, and the whole game now revolves around kickouts. So Kerry have to be able to get their hands on more ball, because yes, they're scoring off their limited possession, but they're going to need more possession because Donegal are going to be a lot more sterner than Tyrone were.
Well, especially when you look at what pattern they're getting. Sorry, Enda.
They're also, Donegal posed the question that Tyrone didn't, where Donegal, if they win your kick out, or if they win, they have a very slow, methodical built attack, but the flip side of that is this very, very aggressive when they smell blood. Like the Dublin team of old, when if there's half a notion that it's open and it could appear 30 metres out from their own goal, or it could appear in midfield, but whenever they sense it's on, they go fast, they go in numbers, and have the players to do it, and they're looking a goal from very, very early in that move. Collectively, they all sense a moment, goals on, and they go, and that could be 100 metres down the pitch, and they're collectively sensing goals on. So Tyrone at this stage aren't doing that as much, but I think Donegal, if they're winning that sort of possession, there will be several times where they will go straight down Kerry's throat before Kerry are set. So it's certainly something to look at, and Donegal's strength in terms of having come on to the Donegal game, but their strength on the bench and everything. Kerry, again, Killian Spillane looks like easily their most impactful sub. I'm sure he's scratching his head how come he's not maybe getting more starts at the minute, but he always looks really lively and really difficult to handle whenever he comes in. But outside of that, they are shorn of men at the minute to really have big impacts on the game, and that's where the return of Paul Ganey or the return of one or two players releases a few others to the bench, because that coming off the bench role is critical too, particularly if the match is as tight as I'd imagine we all think it's going to be.
I actually think maybe that's Jim McGuinness's biggest strength, Nigel, because I was listening to Paddy McBrearty talking after the game yesterday, and he was just so effusive in his praise for Jim McGuinness. He spoke about him being one of the people who wore the path down to his door to ask him to come back. And like, this is a man who is not playing. He's not starting. He's coming on after 45 minutes, albeit he's kicking 3 points and he's still got a massive leadership role. But he's got to be aggravated that he's not playing either. But yet he is talking about this man as the Messiah. It seems like they'll do anything for him. And I'm just thinking, if he can get somebody like Paddy McBrearty to buy into this and to say, look, stick with it, then he's got maybe that's the biggest gift of all, because the talent that he has on his bench the people that can't even get into the squad in this Donegal team is outrageous.
It's frightening. It's frightening. And Enda alluded to the great Dublin team. They could sense a goal opportunity from 100 yards away. Donegal are similar that way. That great Dublin team, Jim Gavin had the best of the best on the bench and had everyone singing off the same hymn sheet, and McGuinness and Donegal has the guys doing the same thing. And I think it comes down to, Jacqui, that they believe in the message that he's presenting them with. He's saying, look, we're going to win the All-Ireland, I promise you, bear with me. He has the aura, he has the charisma, he's like a god up in Donegal, so they hang on his every word. And like, that's very simplistic, but I do think it matters. They believe in the message he's sending them. So Patrick McBrearty is thinking, yeah, I'm not starting and I have the ability to start, but I'm coming on, I'm doing a job, I'm helping my teammates. And I watched McBrearty, he scored 3 points yesterday. Patrick McBrearty in his pomp, as I'd say, there was chances where he could have took handy scores yesterday. And I always would have had him, and I mean this in a positive way, as a greedy forward. And I think you need to be a greedy forward. But he was slipping guys in when he sensed goal opportunities. He's so mature, the way he's playing and the way he's speaking. I'm seeing a side to Patrick McBrearty that maybe 5 or 6 years ago, he might have been scoring 10, 11, 12 points, but Donegal weren't any the better for it. Now he's an impact sub, but Donegal seem like they're unbeatable. I know Jack O'Connor, David Clifford, and Kerry will have something to say about it, but Patrick McBrearty and guys of Patrick's ilk, they're highlighting exactly what Donegal stand for at the moment, and it's the sum of their parts, you know.
Mm. Do you know the other thing that impressed me, Enda, was when I was listening to him talking, he said openly he thinks they've underachieved with this Donegal team. So 5-6 years ago, maybe he was greedy, but maybe it wasn't working for them. And maybe that new version of him is actually working for this team. And that is the flip that they have needed over this last couple of years.
Yeah, well, that's what makes the intensity with which they went, the absolute surety that they went after McGuinness. They weren't knocking on his door. Like, Donegal were abject there for a couple of years, relegated and looked like a pretty hopeless cause, to be honest. And it looked as if this era of the team had shifted on and away it went. But him going to McGuinness's door on the one hand is saying we can be going to McGuinness's door with a message of we can be, isn't going to rock it. McGuinness isn't going to come back to tidy up the team and have them broadly competitive again. And McBrearty would have known that, and the other Donegal players would have known that. Those Donegal players had to absolutely to go and approach somebody that they hold in so much respect as Jimmy McGuinness. You're not going to ask him to come back unless you think the top is in you again. So them going to him was as much them giving the nod of respect to him, saying you can bring out the best in us. But the starting point was they believed in themselves that the best in us is an All-Ireland title, because that's the only reason they would go after a man that they hold in so high esteem. They would never ever want to go after McGuinness, make McGuinness come back and think we don't really have what it takes here, because they would feel they're letting him down. So the psychology of going after McGuinness, for me, reads both ways. When you hold somebody in that high esteem, you only go after him when you know you can deliver what you're asking him to make you deliver, if that makes sense. So look, there's a phenomenal story there to be written, and that needs its final chapter.
Murphy's such a big part of that too, isn't he, though? Yeah, go.
Jack O'Connor, and that Kerry team at the minute, they have chips on their shoulder, and it's rare for a Kerry team, because of their standing in the game, because everything they won, to play with chips on the shoulder. They had it against Armagh because Armagh played last year. They had it against Tyrone because it's Tyrone, and everybody keeps bringing up, sadly, the times when we've beaten Kerry in the past and they haven't forgot about it. But that narrative, if that narrative catches weight, and it's about Donegal and this sort of the final chapter of the second coming, if that catches weight, Kerry will relish it. I loved McGuinness was at it again, and he's never not at it. But in the press conference yesterday after the game, he had a wee line saying, like, you know, it's as if it's a right. It's a right in Kerry to go and win in All-Ireland. And I just thought, there's your hook. That's the hook that he's in. It's a rite of passage. I think, was it a rite of passage term he had, that this was, look, Kerry, it's Kerry. They just believe they can turn up and win. Kerry beat Kerry Donegal in 2014. And so the lovely, and I want a good grudge match is hard to beat. It brings out the best in all of us. And the wee lines are being drawn in the sand there, and you can imagine the narratives within both teams. Both teams are going to come out in pretty grumpy form to put the other to the sword, and hopefully we'll all benefit from it.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. One last person to touch on in that Donegal setup. We haven't mentioned Michael Murphy really here, Nigel. He's got 6 points yesterday, and I know even the lads were saying there was points in the game where he goes in and out of it, but I think it's just his ability to make everybody believe that we're just going to get this done. He starts off the game like a train. He gets the first score. He just gets Donegal moving, and then he says, right, we can all calm down now. And you wonder, what did they do without him over these last number of years? Because there's just such a better picture with him on the field, with him in the middle of it. I don't know how long, whether he comes back, he wins one All-Ireland and he says, right, I'm off to go and sort out the new rules again, or whatever he does. But if he is to lead them to glory, Nigel, it has to go down there as one of the greatest sporting comeback stories of all time.
I don't think there'll be anything close to it. I think if Donegal win the All-Ireland, there's a good chance Michael Murphy will be Footballer of the Year. He'll win another All-Star. These things are kind of secondary, but it will the main point is that he will go down as the greatest GA story of all time. It's like we talked about steam Jim McGuinness is held up in Donegal. Michael Murphy, people bow to him nearly walking into the grounds, and like he changes everything. And we were talking about
some would nearly argue that the old referee bows to him too, but we'll not go there.
Yeah, there is that narrative as well. But actually, on Michael Murphy and David Clifford, indeed, what I love about the two of them, and I mean this in the most complimentary sense, there is a nastiness to them. And I think if they are where they are because of it. Murphy, yeah, always leaves a bit on his opponents. And personally, I love to see that fight in a guy. I watched David Clifford. He's doing more fist pumping this year than I've ever seen in my life. Him and Joe O'Connor, actually, it's nearly like a pantomime. They're turning and they're fist pumping to the crowd. It shows what they're trying to get from the Kerry crowd and get them engaged. But Michael Murphy's back with Donegal, Jacqui. We're talking about Patrick McBrearty going to McGuinness's house. Michael Murphy rather would be in a studio somewhere commentating on these games or analysing them or whatever it is. Only for Jim McGuinness is there. Murphy believes there's an All-Ireland. He's back to add another chapter to his story, add another chapter to Jim's and Donegal's. But he's the greatest Donegal footballer of all time and one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's something else. He is such a gentleman. Like, I mean, you can tell why Donegal. He is your perfect Donegal person. He's that softly spoken, lovely, relaxed manner about him, and yet he is a killer. Like in the best sense of the word. He goes in. He works so hard for the team. He's aggressive in the tackle, and because of his size, he inevitably leaves stuff on boys that's close to the wire. But all of the top players, I certainly remembered, and certainly the likes of Peter that I was lucky enough to play with myself, my God, they played with a real aggression. Even Conor McManus of Monaghan, you've seen him with a bite. But Clifford, absolutely. Like, I love this arm out celebration that he has at the minute. It just is like if a photographer catches that from the right angle, and just him and Michael Jordan, that great, he's got a wingspan. He's this unbelievable wingspan. Whenever he opens it up, it's just amazing. But the involvement you mentioned there about the crowd, he's turning the crowd. The Kerry crowd, I have never seen them, and that's 2 games in a row, as engaged in the numbers. The numbers that Kerry have travelled for the quarter final and the semi final, they are more engaged with this team than I have seen them. I obviously was too young to see them in their glory days in the 70s and 80s, but I've never seen Kerry as supporters as engaged and behind and with the team, and it's from what he's doing and the way he's engaging, the big arm out celebration, the aggression that they're showing. Donegal fans are completely fervent as well. So again, from that side of it, the colour and the noise and the energy that's going to be coming from the stands from both sets of supporters is going to be immense. But yeah, Michael Murphy and David Clifford, like, it's just so set up. The two managers, the two key sort of players on both sides have such an ability to lead their people. Like, this is the war of two peoples now going for this title, that they both story arcs say they end up with the title, but only one can.
Yeah, that's the joy of it all. It is going to be absolutely magic. Before we finish up this morning, lads, the Tailteann Cup final, Nigel, you were obviously on co-com for this one, as Kildare just about got over the line against Limerick. And I think we'll touch on Kildare in a moment, because I think it is very important what they have managed to achieve. But I actually think in so many ways, Limerick have actually been maybe the fairy tale story of the football season in general. The Division 4 title they won earlier this year was an unbelievable achievement. The amount of exposure they've gotten, their ability to get to Croke Park and deliver on the big day came up just short. But actually, I think the performance, the way that this team have carried themselves, the new fans that they have obviously brought on board in Limerick, I think they've genuinely actually been one of the stories of the year, and it's been magnificent to watch.
I couldn't agree more, Jacqui. They've been definitely destroyed the Tailteann Cup, and you could argue, okay, Meath got a little bit humiliated at the weekend, but along with Meath, they've been probably one of the stories of the year. I thought they were really, really good on Saturday. They're very well set up. They're very structured, attacking and defending, which is, when you go down to Tailteann Cup, it's not being disrespectful, but sometimes it's hard to engage players to be able to be so structured, especially attacking wise. I think Limerick were really, really structured, and that has helped them so often. But what they actually lacked them was that little bit of off the cuff flair, that what I'd say the old fashioned greedy finisher, like maybe a Patrick McBrearty 5 or 6 years ago. They just didn't have anyone to take the easy scores. They missed 3 or 4 chances, 25 yards out in front of goals. When they had time on the ball, they were a little bit apprehensive with their execution. But Jackie, they were excellent all year. They've taken some big scalps, like you said. They've won a national title. They've played 2 or 3 games in Croke Park, and only for a Brian Byrne block at the end, where I don't know if it hit his back or his fingers, or like we could have been heading to extra time. And from my viewpoint, where I was, it actually looked like Limerick could have had the legs if they had to go to extra time. A few of the Kildare players were faltering, but I'm not trying to take credit away from Kildare. They did deserve the win. They were slightly the better team on the day.
Mhm.
But it was funny going up to the 7th floor on Saturday. There was genuine worry that this could be a bit lopsided. So for the people in Limerick, that the footballers have done them so proud. It's they've been in the shadows for most of their existence, because they're obviously a hurling mad county with huge tradition. And the fact that they've produced one of the greatest hurling teams of all time in the recent past, they have to completely live in the shadows. Like even something as simple as training in the Gaelic grounds, like they were kind of buzzing that they got to do that. So they're fighting battles in their own county, and what they produce on Saturday will go a long way to kind of igniting younger generation, whether they want to be a Peter Nash or a James Naughton or whoever. Like kids need heroes to look up to, and big games to see these lads playing in. So that will go a long way.
It's a similar story in Kildare, though, Enda, really. You know, I was listening to Kevin Feely, and, you know, he was kind of saying the 10, 11 years he's been involved since he started in Kildare, he hasn't really won anything, you know. So for kids in Kildare to actually go and see them winning national silverware, it does make a big difference, because, you know, they want to be inspired by these kind of heroes. And yes, maybe they only scraped over the line, but it is a hugely important piece of silverware for this team in terms of where they want to go and the trajectory that they might feel that they're on.
No, absolutely. It's the difference between scraping over the line and not is massive. And I think part of Kildare's performance, and it has been haunting them now for a couple of years, there is like this pressure on them, and everybody's watching them, and you're almost watching them to feel, almost watching them, are they going to muck up? Is it going to be another drama? And for me, watching that game, I almost felt it was a perfect result. If that's it, it was exactly the result that I wanted from the game, in that Limerick didn't need to win that, but you really wanted them to have a credible performance, because you could see all the work that they've done. You could see them getting there, that brilliant win to come back from the death against Wicklow. You could see so much positive that they had done, and I played against them, or managed against them with Antrim, and they got up to Division 2 at that stage, and then they'd fallen right back down, and it's easy for them just to stay down there and get lost in the malaise. But the fact that they get out to up to Division 3 was really good, and that was a tight enough call again against Wicklow. But to then turn up and have that really good championship run and get those performances in Croke Park, it's massive for them. And I thought the narrative for teams that have those breakout years or have really successful runs, that maybe see them punching above a level that maybe we see in them, or that there's solid foundations under, that they sort of reach suddenly a bit higher. The likes of a Louth and their Leinster Championship win, the likes of a Meath and their Ireland semi-final place. It's very easy for that, and that usually does end in a wee bit of tears, where you end up getting the wings clipped a wee bit at the end. The match, the way Kildare were playing, at times Kildare, it felt as if the match was going away from Limerick, and yet they stuck in it and kept in it and kept in it. That then put increasing pressure on Kildare, because Kildare will have known that they're expected to win this match. And for a team that is so often they fail to beat Offaly in the league final, they have so often failed at that critical moment. They have failed to get over the line, and suddenly, whenever they're going well, have Limerick well in their place, and next thing Limerick are coming back at them, that wee bit of fear, the doubts in the Limerick players' minds, would have been a massive factor in them starting to shake a wee bit as the line approached. Are we going to get over this line or not? To get over that line, to hold themselves and to complete the job, is massive for them. And then they can look at the Meaths and the Westmeaths and the Down that have been in a similar position and have went on to really credible. Now, there's still that sort of grey area between 2s and 3s, but there's no doubt for me that those 3 teams that I've mentioned have all come up, and they are playing and are well respected sides now. There's that difficult. There's a lot of traffic there between 2 and 3, and so you can flop back and forth, but they're certainly seen as sides capable of mixing it at a higher level. And Limerick now, if they keep going, they can hope to do that, but Kildare definitely will now be needing to push on in Division 2 and solidify themselves for next year.
Do they have the same armour that a Down have, let's say, Nigel? Can they follow that sort of trajectory? Like, you're looking at Meath, Enda's right, they're in an All-Ireland semi-final. I'm sure they'll be disappointed with the performance. But if you're Kildare, you've got to be thinking, we've got to get on this wave, because look what they've managed to do. If we could get anywhere close to that, then suddenly we're a football county again.
Yeah, they have the armour. They have, like, they've won 220s in the last 5 or 6 years, so they have the talent. It's Kildare have been here before. They've went up to Division 1. They've failed to win games. They need to become really, really pragmatic in their approach now. It's not good enough for them to come back down to Division 3. They have to keep this trajectory going upwards. Brian Flanagan comes across as very level-headed, and he'll understand that. And he said it in the interview afterwards that this is a stepping stone, and they're looking ahead to greater things. And they have so much individual talent, and that's why it's frustrating when they flatter to deceive. But I completely agree with Enda. The real, like, for them to get over the line, and the difference between doing that and falling short is massive. And yes, they fell over the line against a team they were fancy to beat well, but they won. They won a trophy, and I think they can push on and be competitive in Sam Maguire. What does that look like? I don't know. I don't think they'll be in the last four, maybe not even the quarterfinals, but I think they can be really competitive. Probably, like, Westmeath were competitive there for a few years in Sam Maguire. They never actually got anything out of it. Kildare can probably be a little bit better than that. So if they solidify Sam Maguire next year, Division 2, I think they can push on over the next 3 or 4 years. But it is actually going to take that long, Jacqui, because they're a little bit loose defensively. They're a little bit lethargic, and they lose concentration when they're in their defensive block. But they have absolutely enough talent to push on, and it's up to them now whether they're going to follow Brian Flanagan's lead and do that.
And you would imagine their age profile looks very, very good, obviously, coming off the back of those couple of underage titles. I think massively it's the landscape in Leinster. If you're a Kildare player, it's not unreasonable to think, right, within the next 3, 4, 5 years, we can be winning a Leinster title. Because the landscape there is different than what it has been in a generation for those players, really. So I think that alone is enough for them all to really, really go at this. The development there is absolutely, but I think age profile and general Leinster landscape will mean any work that you're being asked to do as a Kildare player, you can be, when you see the scenes and what the public reaction in Meath was to them getting on a run, when you've seen the scenes and the public reaction in Louth, my God, as a Kildare player, you're bound to be dreaming of seeing those scenes in your own county. And it looks within their general orbit to go for that, and that's a massive prize. But losing on Saturday, and that's why I say it was the result I was happier with all due respect, with Limerick. I think Limerick's project can continue on, heads really held high, and have a really big thing to. But if Kildare had lost that, it would have just set them back several years again, if you know what I mean. So the fact they get over the line, I think it adds a real solid foundation block to what they'll be hoping to build on from here on.
Yeah, well, it was certainly a big one on Saturday to start that project, for sure. Lads, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks a million for your thoughts right across the weekend. You've been busy, lads, that is for sure. But thanks a million for being with us. Lots of more All-Ireland final talk to look forward to over the next couple of weeks. Of course, we've got the hurling final to come at the weekend as well, so we'll be back later in the week to preview that. Until then, though, from all of us, thanks a million for listening. Don't forget to like and follow wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll talk to you soon.
Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.